how to find the right property. In this investor special series we've been running through, we have been talking about what areas are going to do well, early adopter areas and areas that are about to go boom. Now, all the buyer's agents, all the property experts, pretty much all of the players out there work on transactions. They need to close deals for you to go and purchase something, and that's how they get paid. Now, kudos to them. They provide wonderful insights. But because of that, they are buying and selling you the average property. Buy something that they can find that there are lots of. They have a lot of clients and they need to make sure that you can go and find something that can actually transact. This is where I diverge from the market, and this is where I'm adding in my own spin, my own personal investing and my own personal successes to this and sharing it. This is the alpha. Do not buy the average property. Buy the very specific property that is going to do exceptionally well, because it not only benefits from market movements and the rising tide, but it also benefits from the very fact that our population will double. I'll say that again. Our population will double by the time I die. That is an extraordinary statistic for Australia. It is happening right now. We've had the biggest population growth year in a few decades, maybe even on record, this very year, and we're going to have so many more people in this country that we need to fit in. That means that land becomes increasingly scarce and needs to densify to go and fit in these additional people. This is where alpha returns lie. This is where you can smash home runs and beat the market. And it is not, repeat, it is not just a fancy idea buying a property that's going to get rezoned or benefit from densifying changes. I have done this time and time and time and time again. In fact, almost every single one of my property deals from the time I began investing in 2015, other than the first couple, which kind of sucked, other than those, have effectively benefited from change in what is possible. I bought a tiny little house that is going to turn into a giant apartment site at some point in the future. And in many cases, some of that change has already happened through some of our developments. That alpha return has created extraordinary property returns for me. And it's happened time and time again that I am no longer saying that it's complete fluke. It is very, very predictable. There is so much data, so much information out there for you to go and beat the market return. You simply have to give up the idea of chasing the average and start chasing the extraordinary. We're going to go through how I've done it. We're going to go through a step-by-step checklist of what you need to do to be able to do it. I'm going to talk about Sydney because that's where my experiences have been, but wherever you are, you can apply the same logic, the same research, the same process to go and do it yourself. This change is not a Sydney change, it is an Australia change, and that opportunity is there for you to go and take. You just got to educate yourself on it, and the market isn't going to provide this education because the market gets paid on transactions. This is not a transaction-based idea. It is an extraordinary-based idea. It's based on you going and doing the work and finding that little diamond in the sand. Okay, yeah. How are you?
Pretty good. I'm excited for this one. I think this is like the...
Tell I'm pumped.
Yeah, the Readem like add-on module of property investing. Like if you've got your little property investing certificate of like I've educated myself, this is like the advanced Readem add-on module.
Yeah, this is one that I think is different to people. People don't believe me, but in 2020, I just kind of was like, let's buy in this area, do well, be like, nothing's actually worked. By 2023, 2024, we've executed so many deals now. And, I'll mention locations, Glenfield, Torella. These areas, Todd location areas that have just had massive uplifts in zoning, R3 corner properties all across Sydney, massive rezoning changes that occurred when the low-rise housing code kicked in. It is me simply following information. It's me following the wind and going down those rabbit holes time and time again, spending night after night looking up DAs, researching, understanding planning controls, understanding what areas are going to change a little bit more, understanding what makes sense, what the New South Wales government are thinking. All publicly available, just doing my homework. That homework has led to continually buying areas and land parcels that were this and will become this, not inside 30, 40 years, which is a general sort of time frame, but inside a few years. And that has effectively provided extraordinary property returns time and time again. And now I genuinely believe it's a science. It's not an art. Results are there. I've seen so many other people do it. I watch a lot of deals that I don't even facilitate. One of our clients literally just made a 250% return in 12 months, bought for 900, sold for 2.5. Be like,
Yep.
Whew. Like we're seeing people go and deliver amazing returns time and time again. This is available. It's just most people don't know where to look.
Yeah, and it does, like, it makes sense. It's not luck of the draw, like you say.
Yep.
Like you can get your beta returns. You buying something, you pick the right market at the right time. You're effectively selling the same thing at the end. It's just worth a lot more.
Yep.
Like that's your beta return. That's good. But you can like buy something that can be something. What you're buying and what you're selling is something more, if that makes sense.
100%. Generally, this alpha component is buying something that the market thinks you could do this on, but you realize you can do a lot more, and then showing the market that you can do that and then on selling it. So that's how my best property deals have been. In 2020, for example, I bought a piece of land for $700,000, sold it for nearly 1.4 a few months later. That's a 90% gain in this case inside 12 months. Did it 5 or 6 times back to back. Wasn't quite 90% in those sort of moments, but started crunching down because once the market kind of worked out price, that gap, it just simply wasn't possible. But repeatedly outperformed Sydney macro market movements by a multiple of 2, 3, 4 when this change was happening. And to be honest, I've said it time and time again in a couple of these podcasts, that change, that multiple is out there today because of all the planning changes that are happening at the moment. There are deals to be had. There are opportunities all across the market. I'll talk about some of them here, give you the chance to go and follow it. I've been asked a lot about it recently after the last podcast, but it's entirely possible, and that's how it works. Buy something that is something today that the market doesn't value and then show them what it could be, and then make money in that process. Basically, you're selling to a builder or developer. You're buying something that the builder or developer isn't looking at the moment, can't see its potential, thinks it's this, and you're selling it that way. That's pretty much a strategy. That's the alpha return that's possible. If you can add beta to it, you can apply this into other areas. Maybe not Townsville specifically, which was the example that we looked at, but I'm sure you could do this in Perth. Perth is a massive capital that will have zoning changes to fit in all the people, and you can find opportunities like this. You just got to be willing to put in the work.
Yeah, exactly. And I think for this, you have to be in the weeds. Yep. Like these, I get the returns pay you off for it, but like to do this, you have to be across all the planning, all the like council rules. You have to be in the weeds, and you have to be a subject matter expert in your local area and what's possible and what's not. You're effectively like getting your return on a little bit of an not really information asymmetry, but your knowledge base that you build up and your expertise in what's possible is better than the people around you.
Yep. I call it information asymmetry. I was shocked. Like I am still shocked at the level of understanding about some of the potential changes there. People want certainty. That's the thing. Participants in the market price in certainty so much. They're like, is it certain? If it's certain, I'm in. And be like, if it's not certain, I'm out. And being like, okay, well, what about let's get a bit more nuance to that? Why don't we buy uncertainty a little bit, but show them certainty? That's kind of what the general deal is. And when you have approved plans, you are providing that level of certainty to someone. Be like, I can do this. It's approved, ready to go. And time again, I look at deals being like, what a cracker deal this one. What a cracker deal this one is. What a cracker deal this one is. I remember in March 2022, there was this site in Torella. It was across the road from the railway station. Nice home, triangular block. Across the road from it is the train station. Across the road from it is a 8-level apartment building. It's about 500 square meters. I'm like, what a golden property. Like, I was just common sense, golden property, right? I wasn't in the market at the time. I wish I was. Now it's a 6-level apartment. Like it's R2 zoned, but 3-level. I think I had 3 frontages, maybe 2 triangular. A bit weird, but across like it ticks so many boxes.
Yeah,
it
makes sense.
Common sense. Yeah, it makes sense. You can even smell the winds here. So let's go through how I do this. And how you can do this. It's all about understanding planning rules, but I want to help provide some perspective here. So each of these areas and states will have local planning strategies, and New South Wales state planning strategies. We'll have Victorian state planning strategies. Brisbane will have them. Each state and local government will have planning strategies, and in those strategies, they'll give you the direction, being like, hey, we're thinking of this. This area makes a little bit of sense. We may do this. Now, there's a lot of uncertainty in those words, but the mere fact that they've kind of identified it gives you an early signal, being like, these areas are probably the areas that are going to change. Melbourne has, what's that? Frankston, around Frankston, for example. I don't know the detail on this, but I know that the Melbourne government has come out and named 6-7 areas that are going to experience some level of change. Frankston was one of the areas they mentioned. And if you want to drill down specifically, they've literally got the planning maps out there and showcase that. Now, you would think that everyone knows this, but I'm pretty sure that if you went there, people won't want to buy it because it's not certain. But if you're a property investor that's going to make a property investment decision anyway, and the data's saying go buy in Frankston, this is the beta data. It isn't, but if it was, or if it's an early adopter, then you could be like, you know what? May as well chase that beta ride and also get the alpha. This is the alpha beta strategy working in your favor. Do a little bit of homework. You don't need to go and do insane amounts. You can just follow the direction a little bit, and this gives you the starting point. Take a bit of a gamble. You're going to invest anyway. So instead of buying the generic one, let's be like, cool, let's add this overlay on top. Let's add the alpha on top of the beta. And you can start by reading all the state planning arrangements, and you'll find suburb names mentioned in there. You'll find news articles, and you'll find what the state is looking for and what those local areas are thinking.
Yeah, and there are a lot of places that should have good beta prospects. Like Australia is a relatively big, diverse market. Yep. So, there's a lot of scope to go, all right, if you've identified, maybe 20 or 30 potentially beta positive places to be, all right, what of these has some potential alpha upside? So you can narrow it down a little bit like that. It's not necessarily looking for a unicorn or that impossible. There are lots of markets, or at least some markets where those two things align.
Yeah, exactly. So, adding in some real life examples. So we've talked about Todd in Sydney, the broader mid-rise housing code changes kicking in as well. That is so much opportunity. So right now, a really good example is buy near a railway station, but all lots don't make sense. So I wouldn't be buying all lots. The New South Wales government just put a 21 metre frontage requirement in the Todd. That wasn't there in the first place, but gives you a bit of a signal being like, okay, they want wide dwellings. Of course, it makes a lot of sense as well, right? If you read the low-rise housing code and know it back to front and get some understanding of what is already possible, you realize corner properties, actually, they have a lot of width. There's your width problem solved. Oh, you also work out that depth matters as well. So it's just like, okay, you probably want to be buying specific type of corner properties near railway stations. Doesn't matter if it's R2 or R3. R3 will be apartments. R2 will give you a chance to put in terraces, but the market's pricing in them as duplexes at the moment. Yep. So if you're buying a duplex site, but you can get 4 homes on it, you're going to make some value addition there. Even if it's not possible now, you're going to make some additional benefits, the alpha return from that change. So that's a very, very simple one. Go buy near a train station, but go buy corner property and have the right dimensions in place with decent enough widths and wide enough dwelling. And you have the frameworks of something that makes sense. So this is just basics. Or just buy a wide, nice, juicy parcel of land near a railway station. Right now, you're going to be in the winning. You're going to have a winning ticket or something that exhibits that change because there's such a big planning change occurring at the moment. And all you have to do is simply read what they're actually doing. It's not even that hard. All that information is there available for people. It's pretty near certain. And the time frame it's not 10 years playing on uncertainty. It's 2 or 3 months, or in Todd's case, already happened. There's information out there that gives you more and more clarity. Just don't assume that everything's priced in straight away, because it isn't. There is opportunity in the washing machine of change. There is opportunity to play in that and being like, cool, walk out with a bit of a prize by transacting and participating in a market like this.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's a good way to describe it, like the washing machine of change. Like when things are moving around quite quickly, there is not everything is priced in, and there might be some areas where corner lots aren't being priced that much higher than a lot with a relatively small frontage that's on the same street. Just because people are like, one, maybe it's not certain, and it's a new thing, right? Like people haven't seen apartments go up on that street yet. Yep. So they're like, maybe our apartment's going to go up on that street. There's never been apartments here before.
100%.
And it's not always that a change goes through overnight and then all of a sudden, a corner lot that was worth 2 million is worth 6 million because everyone's like, that change is coming and it's fact.
Yeah, probably right there. There's an element of skill. Now that I think about my processes for this, so in some of those deals that I just talked about where we consistently beat returns. There was an element of skill in the sense that, we needed to make things happen. Like, it wasn't just given to us. We had to go make things happen. We had to go find the right contacts. We had to go get the planning approvals. We had to show them. We had to do the work.
That's the expertise you need to have. You need to develop that. That's what you're being paid on. Like, you need to be, if you're investing in Adelaide or Perth, you need to be the person that if one of your friends had a question on like doing a development or getting a DA through in a particular area for apartments, like, you should be the most knowledgeable person that if that makes sense. Like, that's what you're getting paid on.
I love that. Be the most knowledgeable person you can know. And you could do that by putting in a little bit of the work to get these alpha returns. Let's go through some of the due diligence processes. I want to give people some insights to look for. So these are some of the things that I look for. I pick up the contract for a property that makes sense. Typically wide frontage next to transport. Our recent deal right next to a shopping center, for example, we've just made a purchase a few months ago. Right next to a shopping center, giant block of land, lots of frontages, wide, a corner R3. Basically, ticks a lot of boxes. But then there's due diligence frameworks after we've done that. So tick those high-level boxes. But then the due diligence framework. Does its feasibility work? I talk about that a lot.
Yep.
We've talked about that in the previous episode. Higher value areas, the feasibility is going to be better. But other metrics that I was looking at is I looked at the contract. I read the planning certificate. Is there flood controls? Is there bushfire controls? Are there any unusual controls? Are you allowed to use the whole range of state codes that are available? If you're getting yes to all of those things and there's no flood or no bushfire issues, there's no easements, there's no sewer issues, the slope of the land is all correct, you now have something that's extremely developable because it ticks all those boxes. Are there any massive trees there that are native? What do you call them? Those curb sewer things that are on the side of properties. Are they in the way? Can you put a driveway where you need to? Where will the driveway go? Imagine what the end product will look like. So if you're looking for a property that's going to be sold to apartments, can this land that I'm actually purchasing with the house, the buy and hold investment, can it look like something where apartments can go? If there's obvious roadblocks to it, if there's bus stops on every side, or something be like, and giant trees, it could be like, do I really want this? Yeah,
there's some red flags.
Do I really want this one? Yeah. Like, you're going to have to fight a bit harder. It's not impossible. It's just, do I really want this one? You have very limited capital. You have very limited amounts of property you can buy versus what's available. So, that might not tick the boxes. So that's part of the DD. I do a title search. I often speak to the neighbors about the neighbor intentions. I didn't need to do it on this recent deal because the plot of the land was so large that I don't think I'd ever consider there's no need for an amalgamation. I wouldn't consider it. That is often part of the conversations. Title searches to see if there's any easements. It's all on the title document and what's listed there. What are the easements? Are they problems? You've got these like old clauses on lots of areas that say you can't do this, can't do that. How meaningful are they? So do some homework in and around there. So specifically, let's crystallize this for people. Look up state planning state planning ideas for the future. There will be documents there. Then drill down. Once they've picked in a couple of locations, that search. So let's just say you're looking in Queensland right now because the data says look in Queensland. Yep. And now you've gone in and picked out areas where the infrastructure is going in, and now you've worked out, hey, look, these counts, the state is suggesting these areas require more housing. And now you've looked at, you've drilled down a little bit, you found an alpha sort of opportunity. Now you want to go into the council specifically and be like, what are their thoughts on it? What have they come up with? What can I find? Dig even more, right? I'm now spending ample hours reading council meetings, for example, because of all the changes that are happening. Being like, I need to know what councils are thinking, what their rules may be, how much of a barrier they're going to be, because I'm investing my capital in these locations. I need to understand that. That's the next level that you go through.
Yeah, you've attended like many council like meetings where they're asking for feedback from residents and like,
you need to understand things.
Yeah. Like, and that's again, you need to have that level of expertise that's not just, I've done a bit of research and looked it up. Like, it needs to be a really deep level of understanding in order to do it, which doesn't mean it's impossible to do, but you just need to go to that level.
Yeah. So that's the steps that you get to. And then now let's just say you found a property, you need to go do all the work on the property itself. So this is all the frameworks that I just talked about, planning certificates, DD on the slope, drainage, easements, title searches, neighbor intentions, things like that. You want to complete a basic checklist that is this developable? When the change happens, or if these changes, can I actually develop it? You want to run a high level feasibility, being like, I imagine this is going to be a 6 townhouse site or a 20 apartment site. What does that look like? What does the feasibility look like? Though that is the large sort of events that you'd want to go through to find these alpha returns. But really, you can also just apply a sniff test, if that makes sense. You want to get a little bit more higher level and being like, look, let's just work this out. I want to be buying in, let's say I want to be buying in Perth, for example. One thing that I look at when I look at Perth, for example, there's a new train line going in there. That new train line needs to be paid for. I don't really care what state it is. You can't be building $1 billion plus, a $10 billion plus new railway metro through your existing suburbs without having housing uplift through the process. It's how you pay for it. Like, you rezone land all around those train stations because you don't want to build a train station for 50 people that live on 1,000 square meter lots around that train station.
Exactly.
You need to make people go in there. So that is something that just meets the eye test, being like, yes, it makes sense. There's existing infrastructure there. That's a really, really simple one. Governments will always want people to live around that infrastructure and around key shopping centers. That is going to be universal all across Australia, probably the world. Governments don't want their people to go live, miles away from everything that they actually need. So the planning arrangements should meet that. That's why train stations are so good for the long-term alpha returns.
Yeah, density, follows infrastructure basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This won't be in the data. This is in our first couple episodes, we talk about using data, statistics, macro data to find areas. This sort of stuff will not be in the data. The data will not show these individual anomaly deals. It'll just be like outlier. If you charted it, it'll be like one random outlier, but where is the congregation of the
Exactly,
data?
yeah.
But this entire episode is about finding that little moon, that star up there, and being like, why can't I try and achieve that? Or try and see if that's possible for my stated intentions. You can go do the work and add in the alpha element rather than buying the average, but simply buying a corner property next to the railway station of that area. That will probably do it, or that allows more densification versus a narrow lot property that's smaller in land size. That's never going to get that densification. It's going to require amalgamation. It's going to be too difficult to go and do. So you can apply these sort of principles to get both beta that we've talked about and alpha, and hope through this series so far we've been able to provide some level of understanding and education about where to buy, what areas are about to go boom, and what to buy specifically. That's what this series has been about. In our next episode, we're going to be talking about the art of the deal, how you actually go and buy a property, and all the due diligence criteria that you need to go through, how to inspect properties, how to translate all that data and all that knowledge that you've done into an actual buying process, what you need to do to do that. So that's going to be our next one, and it's going to wrap up our investor series. Great, pleasure.
Yeah.